First of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing funds.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got
that.
Calm down. I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. You got script. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
okay,
an
he's good.
erratic
Mikhail
detective, is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, girl, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Kingdom, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Hi there, good evening. A pleasant holiday anniversary independence celebration to you. A very, very pleasant holiday evening to you. This is the 59th anniversary of our country. We became a sovereign nation 59 years ago, and Leonard, Craig, and I will look back. Craig, much younger than me, I much older than Craig, and we will combine our experience to look at 59 years of where we came from and where we at this moment. Obviously, because of the age difference, I would be more experienced in seeing Guyana than Leonard Craig, but that doesn't mean the angles that Leonard Craig saw in Guyana is not compellingly fascinating and interesting too. So, on behalf of Leonard Craig, welcome to our anniversary, independent anniversary program of the Freddie Kissoon Show. We are 59 years of independence. What have we achieved? Is there a future? Have we gone far, far away from where we come from, or are we regressing? I could only give my viewpoint, my analysis, my impressions. Leonard Craig will do the same. So let me start and then bring in Leonard about my 59 years experience of Guyana. And a lot of that will be based on my 26 years of teaching at the University of Guyana. And in those 26 years, I taught Leonard Craig. When I look at those 26 years at UG, and when I look at May 26, 2025, we have come a long way. I worked at UG for almost peanuts. When I left UG after 26 years, I was earning $169,000. A majority of my students that left UG were earning 3 times that and went to greener pastures. I worked at UG at a time when UG didn't have a bookstore. UG didn't have the infrastructure at UG, didn't have computers. The toilets were not working. You had to leave UG and go out of the campus if there was a call of nature. Basic things like printing materials were short. And I always remember one thing about, I always remember one thing about where we come from after 59 years of independence. And when I meet people and we talk about oil, that incident comes in my mind all the time. And that incident tells us that we should zealously cling to the oil industry and get as much as we can get from it, because one day it will go. Let me tell you what is that incident that I must mention here, and whenever I'm discussing 59, 60, 65 years of independence, I will talk about it. The student leader, Jason Benjamin, and I were in protest together at UG, so we became friends. And he left on student business to go to UWI in Jamaica. And I remember the night I'm driving in to UG, and he was coming out. So I stopped and I said, "You're back?" And he said, yeah. And we talked, and he said, "Freddie, you see the student gym at UWI in Jamaica?" He said, "Freddie, when I saw this thing, I felt ashamed." Our student gym was a little, I don't know, the small, what you see as a stall in the market, in Motor Market or Starbuck Market, a little bit bigger than that. And he said, "Freddie, you see these people gym?" Because Jason Benjamin used the gym every day. He's a bodybuilder. I always remember that. Now today, UG is free. UG have about 6, 8 more buildings than when I taught there in 26 years. So we have come somewhere. And one of the most traumatic episode for me, as someone who worked 26 years at UG when UG was nothing, is that on November the 17th, 2022, 42 signatures appeared in the Starbuck News of some very educated Guyanese. I will just call some of the names. I can't remember all the names. Dr. Nigel Westmus, Dr. Alisa Trotz, Dr. Maya Trotz, the owner of Starbuck News, Isabella De Caries, and a whole set of academics wrote a letter on November the 13th or 17th, 2022. But that's easy to get. You go back to Starbuck on November the 13th or November the 17th. 42 people signed that letter saying the oil industry is derived from the fossil fuel industry. That is bad for the planet. It kills people. And Guyana should get out of it immediately. These were the words. Put an instant moratorium on oil production. Those 42 signatures, I don't know how many of them had experience of working at UG. When I go through the list, none of them. Nigel West was graduated, went away. Isabella De Caries is a UK citizen. Alisa Trotz migrated 30 years ago and lives in Canada and wrote a letter in the paper saying she's got tenure at the University of Toronto, which means you cannot be dismissed. That's a problem. Her sister Maya Trotz left a long time ago, worked at the University of Florida. And these people said we must put a moratorium in oil production. And I am seeing my country in 2025 and where it is going, what the oil industry has done for it. Let me tell you something. You have to be a blatant liar if you don't drive and walk around this country and see we have come a far, far, far way from 1975, 1985, 1995. I'll give over to Leonard Craig now.
Good evening, viewers again. Some things that comes to mind. I remember Freddie as a young child. The days when we had oil shortage.
Coconut shortage.
The
And gas.
Gas,
Yeah.
like
And
gasoline,
yeah,
kerosene.
I saw the lines. Yeah.
Yes. And at the time I grew up in Berbice, I didn't know what was happening in Georgetown. But I could remember as a small child, you had to, because they did not sell more than a gallon of kerosene, because most people cooked with kerosene at the time. You either cook with firewood or kerosene. And even if you had a gas stove, that was just reserved because gas was extremely expensive. It was reserved for, certain special time and cooking like late in the nights or whatever. So you literally had to line up, and they did not sell more than a gallon of gas to one person. So for your family, for your family to get like 2-3 gallon of kerosene in the house, 2-3 members of the family had to stand up in a line behind each other. And sometimes you spend 5-6 hours in the line to get gas. I remember my father was a policeman at the time. Yeah, very, very young
He's
child.
still alive.
Yes, still alive. And they used to go and what you say pull in contraband, because a lot of items were banned in Guyana. Flour, peas, sardine, onions, garlic, a whole lot of things, because and I remember that oftentimes they go either the number 63 beach or somewhere down in Corriverton, Crabwood Creek area or whatever, and quote unquote they used to call it pull in. This man get pull in, and when you hear the term pull in, you know it meant seizure of contraband. And I remember seeing boats coming into the station compound because the police just seized the entire boat with all because the people used to go to Suriname to get those things. So those are my earliest memories of Guyana, actually. Those were my earliest memories of Guyana and Guyanese politics. And I remember things then started to get a little better. And while I was living in the quarantine, I was attending school in New Amsterdam. So while all my friends went to school around the area, I had to attend school in New Amsterdam. And used to have to get up like about 5:30 in the morning to get to school for 7:30, 8. And I used to sleep a lot in school because how early I had to get up, because if I'm not on the road by 5:30, I don't get anything. Sometimes if you miss 5:30 and get out there by 6:15, 6:30, I don't get to school till 9, 10. So to get to school 8 or before 8, I had to be on the road for 5:30. And I remember sleeping a lot in school and all of that. But one of the reasons why I had to get out so early is because there wasn't a minibus culture yet in Guyana. That's one. And two, there was episodes of gasoline shortage from time to time. So it extended to erratic transportation available and so on. I also remember the last of the buses used to call GTSL. Remember those buses?
Yeah. I took them to go UG.
And in those days, you had like bus stops. So you didn't stop the bus anywhere. You had to be at the bus stop, and the bus stop there. And you had a conductor on the bus with that little thing that you turn out the little receipt on after you've paid. So those are some of my earliest memories. And very soon after I traveled on those buses for the first or second or third time, they were about a few times, then the buses started disappearing. And I remember going to New Amsterdam. There is this place called Avinash now at the New Amsterdam Stelling. Used to be a bus terminus. And then you notice all the buses were parked there. 30 something, about 40 buses were all parked there in disuse. And I could remember that hurting, like feel hurt to know that you're struggling for transportation to go to school every day, and these buses are just parked there. I obviously later on I get to learn, you know, why they were parked there and some of the politics behind it. But those were some of my early memories. Notice I mentioned these things without casting blame left or right on the political divide. I'm just sharing an experience for most of the younger people who would not have experienced and may not have even known that some of that existed in Guyana.
I just think I believe one can write a book on one's experience at UG. Imagine you a lecturer teaching a class, and you cannot recommend the text to them because there's no bookstore. There's no way they can get those books. You cannot even give them a handout. There is no printing paper. And one of the things I remember about my 26 years at UG, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, at the right opposite the office of the president in New Garden Street, which is now Shiv Chandrapal Drive, they put something called a Foreign Affairs Institute. They put a Foreign Affairs Institute there. And the man in charge of that Foreign Affairs Institute was my former student. And we used to go to him. I think he helped Mark Curtin too. We used to go to him and used to give us paper and print the handout too. Mm-hmm. Of course, the minister at that time was Clement Roe. The man couldn't tell the minister that he's giving paper to UG. That guy almost took 3 years give us printing paper and print the handout. UG didn't have... people looking at this may think this is a little bit of exaggeration, but we didn't have chalk. Mm-hmm. And do you know this? You went to UG. I taught you at the time when it was the stables.
Yes.
Everybody referred to that main classroom as the stables. And you would think that from the time UG moved to Turkine in 1972, about 10 years after that stable was gone, I left UG when my contract was terminated in 2011, and that stable was still there. No mosquito net. Now, here was the part. You're teaching in a classroom without windows, without mosquito net, and you're teaching and you're making so. Why do you teach it?
Yeah.
You go to the bursary for your pay, and you don't get pay when payment is due. I started out to teach at UG and draw my salary 4 months after. I mean, you need your money. You need your money, but it is my experience at UG, my 26 years, that have told me we have come a long, long way. We look, Burnham died in 85, Hoyt came in, and Hoyt started to open up the economy. But 5-10 years into Hoyt came into power in 85. Still around 90, you couldn't get parts for cars. You couldn't get parts for your machine. Things were way. When it came, I started to teach at Berbice University in 2000, and you got to be there early because it's one ferry, right?
Yeah. And that ferry, yeah.
Right. And today you just drive across the bridge. So we have come a far way in 59 years of independence, but there are some regrets, and this is going to take us right through the program, and we may not have time to talk about anything else. The heated exchange in our last Wednesday program with Kian Jabo and Dr. Franz. This is what I think should take us to the hour, is that we have come a long way in infrastructure, we've come a long way in the economy, but we have not come a long way in race relations. To think that everything is seen in the binary of government, anti-government, Indian versus African. You know, a guy named Baby Skello, a singer.
Mm-hmm.
This man has said the most defaming thing, sexually insulting thing about the sacred God of the Hindu religion. And someone like David Hines see nothing wrong with that. People, you have a minister may open his mouth and say something that is justified or give a rational explanation. It's rejected because he comes from the other side. And I think the elections in April shows where, when the all money keeps pouring in and we're having...
You're having an election in April?
Trinidad had the election in April.
Oh, the Trinidad.
Right.
Okay.
That election result showed us that Trinidad, with the same plural society, with the same ethnic thing, the predominantly Indian party, United National Congress, with an Indian movement, won 7 more seats, of which the majority of them came from Afro-dominated constituency. And when you saw that results, you wish that it could happen in Guyana. And I hope it happens that Irfaan Ali can do what Kamla Bissessar did. And I am pinning my hopes in him because he just came out of nowhere and is a brand new man with a different arrangement. But I don't know how much we have come far in terms of philosophy and race relations. Leonard, everything people put a racial twist to it.
Yeah. My take on that is that politicians are lazy, especially politicians of this day, of this era that we exist in right now. Contemporary politicians especially. And instead of doing the hard work and reaching out to other demographic than they're accustomed to get drawing their support from, they want to consolidate that. And the only way to consolidate that, in effect, is to appeal to racial sentiments. And if you do that, politicians believe that. And not only that, the way how our society is structured, the political relations, you are more likely to believe people from the party you support than those on the other side. So for some people and some core supporters of the PNC, for example, no matter what comes from the government, they first treat it as a lie before they can prove it to be true. And that culture, if you continue to feed that with race attached to it, then we keep our people apart. And it is that laziness. And I've written in the Chronicle, and I have also accused, and I think right now, that laziness has subsumed the opposition, and you can see it. And consumed. Well, the opposition is subsumed in it. Right. So what happened if you look at the rhetoric of the opposition and you look at where they do their work and who they appeal to and all of that, there's nothing in what they're doing currently that suggests that they're even remotely interested in reaching out to the other demographic, which would be East Indian people. You're not seeing it in their language. You're not seeing it in the plans they're putting up. It's as if they're not interested. On the other hand, the current PPP government is reaching out, albeit that it is not 100% what you expect and what you will want, but you can see a concerted effort is being made. I write in the Chronicle, and I wrote more than on one occasion, that you can accuse the PPP of being lazy in the past with respect to race relations. There are many times and many epochs, many periods when you can accuse the PPP of that. But I believe under Irfaan Ali, they have shaken off that that laziness and is working concertedly to include Afro-Guyanese into the larger pie, and steps are being made progressively, right? But then when you look at the rhetoric of the opposition, they are seeming to want to turn people who are giving the government a listening ear, they want to turn that off so that they maintain this core support and they maintain a hold over people of African descent. And if we continue in that way, then I think Guyana will not go anywhere for a long time. But I would like to see the opposition strategize and work hard to infiltrate the Indo community, just as, and I think that would be an appropriate response. And when, to the degree that they are successful, and to the degree that the PPP is successful, Guyana will begin to see a change. But if you don't get that from the two larger parties, then you will then have to, your only strategy, that is just how the society is, your only strategy to fall back on would have to be to try to consolidate race.
Well, but some, either common sense, logic, or rationality have gone out the window. When you go to social media and you listen to Amanza Walton Deserve, you listen to Aubrey Norton and the rest of them, they paint a picture of a government that is extremely flawed, is faulty, and is uncertain that they'll be reelected. But yet, the strategy to win votes, to get themselves elected, and to throw out the government is not there. Now, surely they must have access to some kind of demographic breakdown. A schoolboy knows Indian is about 5 or 10%, the majority, etc. Now, the official statistics, the current census hasn't been released. The official statistic is Indians 39, Africans 29, the mixed race about 18%, etc. The IMF recently, last week, said it's 34 for Indians. But you must know that if you have a population of 39%, you need that to get re-elected. Yet when you listen to them, the government, Norton said plainly, the PNC will be re-elected. They speak about changing the government. They speak about what they're going to do when they get into government. Norton said he's going to keep the subsidies, etc. But how do you get into government when David Hines has lost his marbles and is saying things that Burnham, as the leader of the PNC, will pick up the phone until the Minister of Information make sure the man is not heard in the areas. Let me say to all those young people in the PNC leadership now, they know Burnham. They don't know a damn thing about Burnham. African party, what the Russian word, apparatchik. Those party people who are supposed to overlook the interests of the state, and you put them in this ministry. One of those men insulted Isu Prasad. That's before DDL became a private company, was a government. Isu Prasad stated that in his autobiography. Isu Prasad went to Burnham, and Burnham said, left it to me. I will deal with him. You could imagine the things that David Hines says, that the PNC should jump on, disassociate themselves, and people would say, man, that is a leader. That is a leader. You imagine that man called Aubrey Norton's colleague and Aubrey Norton's fellow parliamentarian, right? A slave catcher, and got on the same seat that you're sitting on and said, yes, I call her a slave catcher. She shouldn't push her mouth in black people business. And that's Aubrey Norton's parliamentarian. I am telling you, for Burnham, for all the criticisms people make of him, Burnham and Dr. Ptolemy Reed would not have tolerated that. Aubrey Norton, that's his parliamentarian. I am telling you, the PNC has lost that woman. I know what I'm talking about.
Yes, so ever since I am conscious of political matters in Guyana, that has always been, the driving force of our politics, the driving force of our relations, especially when it starts coming around election time. It's as if our population transform into ethnic enclaves, and everything, our relations in the country just degrade because we believe we got to take a political side, both in our mentality, both in our everyday behavior, and these kinds of things. And sometimes I really don't understand it. Facebook descends into real nasty exchanges around.
Stop there. There is a PNC stalwart named Norman Brown from London. You can get it in your smartphone.
Well, what makes him a PNC stalwart?
Well, I know he's been associated with the PNC a long time, in the PNC group in London.
Okay.
He's been associated with the PNC group in London for a long time.
Okay.
That man, go in your smartphone. You can find it. That man said a PPP, a top PPP person inside in the PPP, confided in him that when Irfaan Ali meets black people, when he leaves, he washes his hands with a particular soap. To think that Norman Brown, listen, this is not some uneducated man saying that. This is a man who belongs to the PNC London group. And those are the kind of things now, even if he doesn't speak for the PNC, what the PNC need to do and the AFC need to do is monitor these things and quickly say, listen, this is not our politics. This is not how we see our country. But these social media insanities are left to fester.
And so what you'll find happening now is that people will recognize this, what I will refer to as madness. People will recognize it. And I believe the opposition, in trying to consolidate and not reaching out they are going to end up consolidating a smaller group, because those who exist on the fringes, they are going to end up losing them. I remember in the AFC, David Patterson used to refer to some section of the population that can change their political alignment as persuadables. And those persuadables exist on the fringes. And when they look at one side and look at the other side, one out of two things. They will either stay home or they would more likely be attracted to the PPP. And I'm talking about PNC traditional support, or I'm talking about Afro-Guyanese who probably are looking to the PNC for leadership. And because of this lack of leadership, especially people, there are lots of Afro-Guyanese, and I always say, and I've even wrote about it, that my experience in the AFC was that there are lots of Afro-Guyanese, not a whole set to be like an earth-shifting change, but enough to change seat counts by 1 or 2. Afro-Guyanese who are not enamored with who are not lovers of the PNC and would prefer either the PPP or to stay neutral. And I think the PNC is underrating David Hines and the others are underrating the amount of Afro-Guyanese who are of that persuasion. And while they're trying to preserve the core support in the Afro-Guyanese community, I don't think they're catering for the few on the fringes who were never sold lock, stock, and barrel on that black leadership and black support system. And in their rhetoric, I don't think they're catering for those people, to even reach out to those people. And these are a group of black people, much less to reach as far over to East Indian people to say, look, we have an alternative to the PPP. We can govern and you can feel safe, you can feel comfortable, you can feel like we are governing for you. And I don't get a sense that East Indians feel that way, or they're going to feel that way anytime soon, at least not for the 2025 election. So what is left? So we could literally dismiss East Indian crossover for the PNC, or any group with the PNC in it. We could literally dismiss that now. So that's one. So what is left, the pie that is left for the political parties to gnaw at, or to fight over, or to try to win over, are African Guyanese. That's the only group that is left to quote unquote infiltrate, if we could use that word. That's the only group that is left. So the people who think they are controlling this group are likely, in my opinion, to be the biggest losers.
But what the main opposition has done, AFC, PNC, they're also making it harder. And I feel sorry for Anug. I don't know about T. Mohammed. I don't think that's going anywhere. But they're making it harder because if you have a catchment area of undecided Indians, they can be easily persuaded to make up their mind and vote for the PPP, because when you say to them, all right, look what is the alternative. You move away, you give your vote to a third party, and the opposition squeaking. These are the kind of people you want to rule together. let me give you an example. Was it necessary for Nigel Hughes and Aubrey Norton to foolishly say it was agent provocateurs that created that mayhem? If you don't know to say something sensible, shut your mouth. If you shut your mouth, you win, because nobody can accuse you of. People business got looted. People vehicles were pelted. Some of them were burned and destroyed. That coming months before an election, how you think people gonna vote? And what that April 28th mayhem has done, it has solidified, or it has changed the mind of the undecided Indian voters, because these people say, man, not again. September 2020 in Cotton Tree, then the thing in the Monroe Market where they beat up people. Now this again. And as Virginia Besessa, who is an insane hater of the PPP, said right here, people are going back to the PPP.
Yeah, well, so my argument is this, that even if they are persuadables, East Indian persuadables, who would wish I saw that in the AFC. There were many East Indian people who came to the AFC, but they still had a psychological tie to the PPP. But they came to the AFC because they wish two things they wish. One, that the PPP behave better. And two, whatever they interpret the PPP to be misbehaving about, they wish that either the PPP behave better, so they came to the AFC to punish the PPP so that they wake up and behave better. And then they will go back home, because this is what so it's a punishment. So that is one. That is how I interpret it from being in the AFC. The second reason people came to the AFC, and I'm talking about East Indian people, and it might be the same on the Afro side. Many East Indians came to the AFC because they really, really wanted Guyana to have an alternative to one party. Right. So if this one rule and that one rule is still like a one-party state, you end up with, because if you run parliament and you run the executive, it's like, you can literally run the commanding heights of the economy. And so there were some East Indian people who really wanted that shift in our politics. And so they came to the AFC. But what I found is that there was still a psychological tie to the PPP, or not psychological, but emotional. It's not, they don't want to see the destruction of the PPP, but they want either the PPP to behave better and or the other factor. On the Afro side, and again, would be my evaluation. On the Afro side, you had pretty much the same. But among that, there was a large part of Africans who did not necessarily want to be part of anything to do with the PNC, but they couldn't find it palatable to support the PPP for the same reasons that the East Indian people came to the AFC for. So among Africans and East Indians, they shared a similar mindset in the AFC with respect to the PNC and the PPP. It was similar. So there were lots of Africans with a similar mindset to the PPP, to the East Indians, but the difference was that East Indians maintained some emotional attachment to the PPP, but Africans find that, man, we can't go with the PPP because of whatever other reason. And as I'm saying, they share the same reason, because they wanted the PPP to behave better. And so AFC became and was becoming popular and more popular because of that. And I don't think that those in the opposition right now, I don't think they have evaluated that enough and understand that enough to know then that if you are, and they're probably East Indians that still believe that the PPP needs to behave better for whatever they consider behaving better politically, economically, management of the economy. They might very well be. But I believe the behavior of the opposition, the things they're saying, the things they're doing, the way they're campaigning, the way they try to infiltrate, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't hear it. You don't get a sense that they're interested in East Indian votes. I think when you look at it, they believe that Africans and some Amerindians could win them the election. That at least that is the public aura that they portray, right? And you see it in their messaging. When somebody reaching out, as you can see in the PPP's messaging, and you can see in the PPP's action, that they are interested in African support at the next election. You can see it. You can, everywhere you go, it's ubiquitous. And you don't see that in the reverse from the opposition. So again, I'm saying that because of that, East Indians are not likely, at least not in 2025, to vote for the PNC or any group with the PNC. And it leaves the parties to campaign for the vote of the African. The vote of the African in 2025. Well, no vote is more valuable than any other. But for a party to win, right now, the vote of the African in Guyana is premium. And the PPP, I believe, understands that. I think the opposition understands that, and that is why they're fighting back with race. But what I would like to see, that they extend, at least whether it is successful or not, they need to assuage the fears of East Indians and let East Indians believe that they can find a home in the PNC, in APNU, in whatever formation opposition takes. Let people believe they could find a home, even if it's not in 2025, in future years, because I believe it's already too late for 2020. 2025 is almost set in stones, except the question is, by how much? The PPP will win. The question is, by how much? And how the PPP behaves, how deep it goes into reaching out into its non-traditional base will determine the by how much question.
Well, I believe the PPP will win and they will take a few more seats. If they do that, and I'm basing my thing now on Clive Thomas, who's insanely anti-PPP, he said by 2028, this is what he said. It's no exaggeration, if I can get it. He said there's so much money will be coming in 2028. The government would not know how to spend it. It's going to be so much. So I am anticipating that Irfaan Ali is going to use the next 5 years. He is going to shape his legacy. He is going to do things that when he rides away in 2030, he wants to be, and perhaps will be, the numero uno man in the Caribbean. Over Williams in Trinidad, over Barrow, Manley, Bustamante, Bishop in Grenada, Burnham Jagan in Guyana. He wants to, when you talk about Caribbean politics, and when you talk about Guyana, his name would be there. And I think he's going to achieve that. I think he's going to achieve that. He has a different He has a different style.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, his output will have to be phenomenal because those names that you call there are giants in Caribbean politics, and his second term would have to be phenomenal. To make that term phenomenal, though, Irfaan Ali's government of 25 to 30 would have to include matters that affect Afro-Guyanese in not just superficial ways.
Yeah,
It would have to go deep.
Yeah.
Things that will change the circumstances.
I would think one of that.
Mhm.
I would think one of that is as much as possible for the creation of an African petty bourgeoisie, and the creation of a valid African middle class peasantry. Because there's a substantial amount of Africans who have land and who are into, the pork industry, what have you. You got to concentrate on that.
Yeah. And I believe that can be Ali's transformative, apart from infrastructure and all of that, right? What is happening already is transformative. But to give Ali that, an exceptional attempt and an exceptional effort will have to be put in making sure there are reforms that touch the Afro-Guyanese community deeply, transformatively. And I believe once that is done, I would concede what you're saying, and those names will put Ali way ahead. And in fact, may win the PPP the next 4 or 5 elections, because what the PPP would have done demonstratively would be to be so inclusive that Africans have no reason. In fact, even the opposition will have no reason to use race as a bait or a clickbait.
I want to see on this. I want to see by the 60th year anniversary. I want to see with this petro state we have. I would like to see we taking a greater role in shaping a united Caribbean. Manning came into power and he birthed something called the Manning Initiative. He said, let's start first with Trinidad, Guyana, and Barbados. And I'd like to see that. I think the world economy is in turmoil, and there is a pressing need for us to go closer.
Yeah.
Especially with foreign trade. We need a larger market. And right now the CSME is not really functional.
Like when last you heard of CSME?
Trinidad is cheating on CSME.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see Guyana take a large role in the economy, and I'd like to see we use our money for the smaller, poorer CARICOM members. I'm talking about Dominica, St. Lucia. We have to be we have all money.
Yeah, certainly. So I wouldn't disagree with you. I know that they're trying to start like a Caribbean ferry service and some.
Yeah, but they're waiting for money to
Yeah, so that is what I'm saying now. That Guyana now, well, probably not right now, but by 2028, 29, Guyana would be in a better position to take the leadership on a lot of things with respect to things Caribbean, and that there is valid. One thing that the President Irfaan Ali had taken leadership in, and we were talking just now about the African factor, was in reparations for these Caribbean countries. But there's an aspect to reparation, and you would have read my column that I wrote about sometime. Yep. There's an aspect to reparation that is local, that laid the foundation for what Guyana is. And in my opinion, prior to finding oil, there was no need, or Guyana could not have afforded any form of reparation. That's just my belief. But now that we have a windfall, as a nation, we have to sit down and talk about how Africans, I don't want to use the word compensate, but how Africans could be included and benefit from this oil wealth. But as you say, so for me, I would put a concentration on that before I go out to the smaller Caribbean islands. But just as we are throwing open our doors to Venezuelans who have difficult circumstances, if these smaller islands, as Guyana get better, if these smaller islands want to come and work and all of that, I think Guyana should throw open its doors. So that would be my comment on that. And I believe if President Ali goes in that direction, the Barrow and the
Manleys
and so on, in my opinion, would have nothing on him, right? Because to rule a country for 10 years, to see such transformative infrastructure, and then to see its people, say, for example, and I believe Ali will benefit from a lot of crossover voting, and to see its people vote, I don't want to use the term so overwhelmingly, but because I support Ali, I wish it is overwhelming. But even if it is not, even if it is significant and not overwhelming, that says something. And that makes Ali probably even would put him ahead of Burnham with respect to national support, at least in Guyana. And I'm talking about political returns at the ballot box. And certainly many of the other recognized Caribbean leaders. So I'm with you on that.
Now, we've finished, today is the 26th, 59th anniversary. We finished with that. We climb into the 60th anniversary. We don't have much time, but I would hope by the time we reach the 60th anniversary of independence, we will have avoided putting our eggs in one basket, that we will have good relations with countries that Guyana economy and infrastructure can benefit from. China,
the US.
Russia, North American countries, Europe, but not to concentrate on one particular area, because countries do not have permanent friends. They have permanent interests. So
certainly.
I hope by next year, when we celebrate the 60th anniversary, we will have a foreign policy that is independent of geopolitics and warring factions.
In fact, I believe Guyana should go big for its 60th. What would be nice is if at our 60th anniversary in that year, or by the time we celebrate our 60th independence, the ICJ would have returned their ruling confirming the
Essequibo belongs to us. Right?
That would be nice. And Guyana should go big. But whether the judgment comes back or not, before our 60th, I think we should go big, because 60, that nice round number, I think Your 60th year is what year? They have names for these years. Golden
Jubilee's 50.
Jubilee.
I don't know what's the 60 or what's the 80.
Or whatever. But it must have some significance because every 10 years they got names for it. And I believe it's significant and we should go big. And whatever big we do, we should do it in Essequibo. So there's a concert coming up. I think next week.
Vibes Cartel?
No. The concert that the president is sponsoring that wants to evoke patriotism in people and that kind of thing. And I think we should have that all over Essequibo for next year. Just to reaffirm that Venezuela belongs to us.
Our time has come. Thanks for being with us on this 59th anniversary of Guyana's independence. Once again, we hope you enjoy what's left of Wednesday, May the 26th. We hope you will have a very pleasant rest of the evening. Independence anniversary. We will see you for our call-in program on Friday. Thanks for being with us. This was our Independence anniversary episode. On behalf of Leonard Craig, catch you later. Bye-bye.